it is important that we even map back our expectations. It's important that we find the origin of where we got this expectation to see if it's healthy or not healthy. Hey, everybody, we are back for episode 4 of the 2=1 Marriage Podcast. And we are so excited. This How to Have a Good Fight, y'all, has been amazing.
Yeah.
And just that last episode, we really talked about recalling, rehab, like dealing with and redeeming our past, how it can become a part of our purpose and a part of our future.
Yeah.
And we practice some tools. And really what we have discovered is like, in our relationship, not just our marriage relationship, but a lot of our relationships, a lot of our fights come from unclear expectations.
That's right.
And or unspoken expectations, or whatever kind of expectations, issues with expectations. And that's what we want to talk about in this episode 4 of the 2=1 Marriage Podcast. Y'all, first of all, let's just set the groundwork. We are equally crazy, but equally what?
Committed
Yes. To expectations. All of us have expectations in our relationships.
Yes.
And this episode 4 is about regulating our expectations.
That's right. It's so crazy because so many of our relationships fall apart.
Yes.
Because of expectations that weren't met, because we didn't clarify to bring unity. And so I think clarification of expectations in marriage makes us more unified.
Yeah.
It's less arguments.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're fighting over silly stuff that we just didn't say out loud.
Yes.
We expected the person to just read our mind. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny because I went on Pinterest, right? I've got this husband.
I got a Pinterest account too.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't mad. I ain't scared to be a man with a Pinterest account.
But I have a husband-loving board.
You do?
I don't know if you knew that.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And it's where I go to affirm our marriage and affirm you and affirm how I feel about you and different things like that. And there's one that I have in there, one pin where it says, I need you to love me hard today.
Oh, wow.
Extra hard. And it's a woman hugging, like reaching up and hug a picture of her hugging her husband. And I've sent that to you before.
Yes. I don't remember though.
Yeah, I know you don't remember. But like, that's besides the point. But that day I remember it's like, I needed something from you and I didn't know how to communicate it.
Wow.
So I just sent you the picture. And it's like with the words on it that are in the thing. And I just needed some extra love that day, extra hugs. And it's like, I could have walked away from that day, never communicating anything, but expecting you to read my mind and know what I needed. And so it can cause disappointment, frustration when we haven't communicated out loud what we need or what we just want.
Absolutely.
It's not always about a need. Sometimes it's just what we want.
In the moment.
In the moment.
Like, I want candy.
It's frivolous.
I have an expectation.
Yeah.
I want to have a sweet tooth. And then we communicate it. I have a sweet tooth. Let's go get candy.
Yes.
So when we think about, we've been talking about like how to have a good fight, because a lot of the fights that we have had, a lot of the fights that we've coached, couples through, pastors through, leaders through, has been based off of expectations, in any issue of expectations. And just like we have an origin of fighting, we also have an origin of expectations. Many of our expectations have come from dysfunctional moments, dysfunctional people, dysfunctional family systems, dysfunctional relationships. Some of our expectations can even be
fantasy,
right?
From movies and
absolutely.
romance
Come on, you complete me.
Yeah, and you
that doesn't work.
expect exactly a guy to it's Valentine's Day, and I remember having this conversation with you early on in our marriage. Like, you didn't give me a million flowers, and it's like, why am I disappointed? I never even explained that. That's something that I really enjoy.
Yes.
But then later on, I discovered where that came from. It came from movies.
Wow.
I actually don't even want flowers on Valentine's Day. I want them all the rest of the year.
So you want them every day?
Just whenever, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need them on Valentine's Day. In fact, it burns me, aggravates me that you are spending quadruple, 5 times more on flowers that one day than the rest of the year.
Wow.
Just literally go to, the store and get me a $9.99 bouquet of a dozen roses versus the $150 bouquet. Like, I don't need all that.
What I'm hearing us, and what I'm hearing you say, and what I think what our listeners need to understand is our expectations come from somewhere. And it is important that we even map back our expectations. It's important that we find the origin of where we got this expectation to see if it's healthy or not healthy. Is it realistic or unrealistic, right? Is this expectation me-centered or us-centered? And so I think for me, even we talked about some very deep and painful things, but there's just some things that came along with how your parents treated one another in a fight, or how they met each other's needs, in the house, and who cooked or who didn't cook, or who provided or who didn't provide, or who took out the trash or who didn't take out the trash, and I think this, like when we were first married, we fought about the dumbest things because our expectations didn't come from a solid foundation or a place of health. And so we had expectations like, who was going to cook, who was not going to cook. We had expectations. You were like, it's the man's job to take the trash out, but then I was not home for a week. So you're just not going to ever take the trash out. Right. Like if my expectation was for you to cook and me not to cook, but I love to cook. Right. So if I went by that expectation, I wouldn't even get to create the way that I have created. So I think it's important in regulating our expectations, some very practical things in regulating our expectations.
And a lot of things, like number one, as we're regulating our expectations, number one, are we even conscious of the expectation that we have? Are you aware that you even have an expectation of your spouse? Or in any relationship. Yes. This teaching is helping in all of our relationships, Absolutely. Not just our marriages, but a great way to become conscious of whether or not you had an expectation that wasn't met is to consider how you're feeling in the moment. Like, so for me, what it looks like is I'll get angry and disappointed. Yeah. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh, anger and disappointment, that emotion what is it telling me? I am upset that my expectation didn't get met. Wow. So the emotion of anger and frustration for me, when it comes up, I start to think about that. Oh my gosh, I had an expectation. I wasn't invited to that party. That person doesn't return my texts. Wow. Jimmy didn't return my texts in, we have this 24-hour rule at work, right? Yeah. And, you have 24 hours to return an email. Yes. But sometimes we'll make up a script of why the person didn't return our email instead of saying, like that we actually expected it to be. So what I'm hearing you say is our emotions in our relationship can point to also our consciousness of our expectations. Yeah. And so if I'm feeling something, it's due to an expectation that was met or not met or communicated or not communicated. And so if I feel from the past. Absolutely. If I feel like I have an expectation that wasn't met, a lot of times the awareness of that expectation comes through an emotion. And that emotion is anger or fear or doubt or discouragement or, watch this, disappointment. Disappointment is an emotion that needs to point to expectations. Did I communicate the expectations? Am I conscious of that? So in marriages, if you find yourself disappointed by your spouse, instead of saying what they did or didn't do, find inside of your conscious, map that back to the expectation that was not met. And then when you go from conscious expectations, you'll go to realistic. Is this expectation realistic or not realistic? Is this something that my spouse can do? Watch this now. Is this a need that my spouse should meet, not could meet? Could meet. Is this a need that my spouse should meet, not could they meet it? Because a lot of times, just because our spouse meets a need, it might be a need that only we should be getting from God, right? But we want our spouse to help us navigate our spiritual life, or help we want our spouses to help us, navigate this educational need or this need of security. And sometimes they are able to meet that need in the moment, but it's not their role to meet that. They weren't meant to meet it. Need. Is this expectation realistic? Yeah, Pastor Jimmy Evans just sent an email out through XO where he wrote about that very thing. Like, we expect our spouses to meet a need that only God can meet. Yeah. Where we weren't meant to bring that healing
That's
to
right.
the other person in particular. It's like only God can fill that space. So like you said, once we become conscious that we have an expectation and we weigh whether or not it's realistic, is the person even capable? And I love this example. You and I like to use this is I used to get really upset with you, and I brought it up in counseling because you would.
Your voice just changed. Like, I used to get really upset with you. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see that? Oh, yeah. Listen, go ahead.
So literally we would be in trying to have a conversation, and I'm trying to connect with you because you said you want it. That's a desire of yours.
Yes.
You want to connect with me. So I'm talking to you, but I'm feeling like you're not present. You're not in the room. You're either scrolling. You'll like jump in and say something while I'm in the middle of a sentence. So then I get distracted because I have inattentive ADD. So my inattentiveness is when I get distracted, it's hard for me to come back. So I remember being in counseling and saying, like, he doesn't seem interested. So why am I going to have a conversation? He's always doing something else. So I had an expectation to have your undivided attention, but I didn't communicate it.
Wow.
And I was like, when I started weighing if it was even realistic, I started realizing when you're not medicated, for your ADHD, I'm expecting you to attend to me for long periods of time because I'm long-winded.
Really?
And
I didn't know that.
I can be long-winded. And so I'm expecting you to attend and listen and what have you, but you're not. I'm asking you for not the impossible, but it's really hard for your executive function to attend for that long.
Yes.
It's not realistic.
It's not realistic.
It's like, if your spouse is disabled and you're expecting them to do things that a fully able human being can do, that's not a realistic expectation, and you're really causing yourself and them a disservice.
Yes. I think one of the things that I'm realizing, moving from conscious expectations to, while we're regulating these, to realistic, a lot of times we haven't even communicated those expectations. So the next thing is spoken. Have you communicated the expectation? Have you communicated the expectation? Have I said it? Is it just in your head? I'm not, I'm not the Holy Spirit. I can't just,
Although I try sometimes, I look in
she's
your
like looking
eyes
at me with
I'm
these
like,
eyes.
Yeah.
And the only eyes I like is the ones that meet a sexual expectation.
Oh my gosh.
A sexpectation. Come on, somebody.
Gosh.
But
We should
anyway,
talk about that.
we will talk about that. But let's just talk about first spoken. Have I spoken the expectation? And here's the deal. A lot of marriages fight and couples fight over expectations that were not communicated but expected.
But they were expected.
I'm not a mind reader. Nope. You're not a mind reader. Listen, listeners, I need y'all to lean in right here. Conscious. You had an expectation. Realistic. Is it realistic? Can they even meet it? Right? Like if you want me to spell check, I want Jimmy to spell check our books. That's an unrealistic expectation because I can't spell. So I'm not asking you to spell check, but are you asking your spouse to do something that's not even their capability? Yeah. And now speak it. Have you communicated this expectation? Because here's what people say. They should know. They should know that I want flowers. They should know that I want sex. Yeah. They should know. Guess what? You should know that you should have said it because your spouse is not a mind reader.
So like you and I will talk about things sometimes, and I'll try to read your mind. Like, does he want sex right now? Does he not want it?
Yes. No. Never not want it. Always want it.
No, it's not true.
No, it's not true. It's
you
not true.
You decline.
Yeah, it's just because I'm mad about something.
Joke around.
Yeah, or super tired.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's normally super tired.
It is.
Last time I checked, it's because you were tired.
Yes.
But if I just assume that you have assumed about me.
Yes.
That I should know that when a certain amount of days has gone by, why aren't you thinking about sex and why aren't you initiating?
I want you to want this.
And you're assuming though.
I want you to be a little spicy. Come on.
My gosh.
Let's go. Okay. No.
Spoken. Is it spoken though? Like, hey, I'm feeling whatever word you want to use, descriptive word to describe that you're in the mood.
Yes.
Like, am I feeling in the mood today? Like, say it out loud so I don't have to guess.
Yes.
So here's the deal. I know I always go back to trauma and PTSD, but the family of origin stuff in our early days really is real in the way it impacts us today. So because of my PTSD, and growing up in situations where I'm always walking on eggshells trying to feel out what the mood is and how I should respond, because I got to be a good girl, can't upset anybody. I can be so overly, I've gotten better, but conscientious of Jimmy's mood. How is Jimmy's mood? And letting that dictate how I'm going to function in terms of meeting your sexual needs.
A lot of couples struggle right here.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't communicated our expectations with our words, so we communicate them with body language. We communicate them with facial expressions. We communicate them with attitude. Remember, we're talking about spoken, not unspoken. Unspoken is body language. Unspoken is they should know. No, they shouldn't. And if you need, guess what? In the season changes of marriage, how we have changed in the 24 years of our marriage, our expectations need to be restated over and over in the different seasons of our marriage. And so what happens is y'all should be fighting about an expectation. I communicated that 15 years ago. I communicated that 10 years ago, but your needs changed, baby.
Yep. Hey, and you know what? This morning when we were getting ready to come to XO Marriage to film our podcast, I restated an expectation with you.
Which one was it?
It was, we were brushing our teeth and I said, hey, let me just remind us of the foundation work for us to have an amazing day. We've got to be respectful, kind, gentle. All that was me recommunicating an already agreed upon expectation. You and I have talked about it and spoken about it in the past. And that's the last one. So first, our expectations, are we conscious of them? Are they realistic? Number 3, are they spoken? And have we communicated them? Number 4, are they agreed upon?
I think, can I jump in right here? Are they agreed upon? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are they agreed upon? I want to hear what you have to say for sure. But if the other person hasn't agreed to the expectation, we can't hold them to it. So you and I had a conversation about how to eliminate the stress and how to care for one another when we are working and when we're doing podcasts. And that was, for me, I don't want to have to guess what you're thinking. I want you to speak it. I want you to say it out loud. And I need, in order for me not to walk on eggshells around you, I need to know what you're thinking and feeling. So say it out loud and be kind and gentle. When you're gentle, my boldness comes up.
Come on.
So yeah, we agreed upon it though.
That's
so
great.
All I had to do this morning was gently remind you of it.
I think that's great, is communicating. Once we speak it, right? I then affirmed you by saying this is realistic. I said, yeah, I agree. I agreed on the expectation that you communicated because it's something I want to commit to doing.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, one of the exercises that I think we can give couples, there are some basic areas like kids. If you're newly married, you know, you need to write down your top 3 expectations with how you're handling your kids. Let me tell you something, especially those who have adult children.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And then in this exercise, you're going to like money, finances, because that's what people fight over, right? Future, jobs. These are my expectations of how we're providing and where I'm going to do. Church, religion, right? All that. Then sit down and have a conversation. Take out a pen and write U for unrealistic or R for realistic and agree upon it. And the things that you feel like your spouse is communicating that's unrealistic require another conversation.
Like
do not get stuck there, right?
And what does the conversation look like? It looks like, where is this coming from?
Yes.
We are always, do you realize we're always, in every episode, all the skills we're teaching, we always got to go back to the beginning. We got a map. We got to go back and say, where did this come from?
Wow.
Where did your expectation come from about me cooking every day?
Yeah. That it wasn't in the beginning, but I gave up because you failed at that over and over.
This guy, first of all, I remember looking at you one day.
You created DoorDash.
Huh? Hold on.
Feel like
you what?
Because you didn't want to cook. So you was like, I'm just going to make DoorDash. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So when, as we were navigating this whole thing of agreed upon expectations, and we map it back to where did it come from, and we're asking ourselves that question, we're getting good at it now.
Yes.
So we're like, where's that coming from? But where did it even come from where you had this expectation for me to cook every day? Like that's in our roles in marriage, in premarital counseling for all the new couples that are newlyweds. And we are discussing in premarital counseling what our roles are going to be.
Yes.
And then we talk about where is that expectation coming from? Like what made you? I'm asking.
The Huxtables.
The Huxtables?
The Cosby Show.
So she cooked every day?
She could not every day, but when there was a cooking
so
scene,
it was fantasy.
No, it wasn't fantasy. It was TV. That was what culture had literally portrayed that this is what was supposed to happen. Did my mom cook every day? No. My dad and mom cooked. And I think that it was culture. And so it was like the wife should cook. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what should happen. But I love to cook.
Yeah,
and we have discovered that cooking is a part of me, relaxing. It's de-stressing for me. And so once we went through all of our critical categories and said unrealistic or realistic, then we could communicate to one another the expectation and start expectations from ground zero in our marriage with no dysfunctional origin. We mapped it back. No, trying to protect ourselves or build trust in an area that we were let down. We began to find the expectations and regulate those for our relationship.
So what did it look like? It looked like me agreeing to,
yes,
I will do the shopping and I will do the cleaning. And I'll do the sous chefing. I'll cut up vegetables and do whatever and clean while you cook majority of the meals.
Yes.
And then I will also, commit to maybe 2-3 meals where I'm bringing something to the table. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking a month.
It's been that. No, a week.
I'm sorry.
When the kids were home, it's I had to feed. I had to feed them regularly. They had to eat to live and survive and be, grow. And it was my obligation as a parent.
Well, let's jump into this.
So
let's talk about sex expectations. Like a lot of couples fight about the frequency of sex. They fight about, our good friends, Dave and Ashley Willis. We need to bring them into this topic at the Naked Marriage podcast, which is absolutely awesome, which everyone needs to subscribe to and listen to.
And they wrote a book called Counterfeit Climax.
Yeah, we're going to let them talk about that, though.
But it's so good.
It's so good.
No, it's so good.
It's so good. But anyway. Sex expectations. This has been a fight in our marriage. It was a fight for years. It's not any longer, right? Now we have a sex calendar. Right. And so we would literally fight about, the frequency of sex.
Like you would say, oh, man, it's been months. It's been 3 days, Jimmy Rollins.
Like months,
Oh, my gosh. Or it's been, a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And it really, to be honest with you, the only time we even went that long is like when I just had a baby or what have you, or like our, physical female function that happens every month. But to you had this exaggerated way of communicating it. Like it was so long. And you know what I would make up about that? I would feel like I was a failure. Like I wasn't meeting my husband's needs. Like I was a bad person. I would feel shame.
But I was like, you would meet my needs so good. I just wanted more needs.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? Here's the thing about what we did. We need to let couples know. You have to stop fighting about it, because the more you fight about it, the more distance it's going to be when you have it. Yeah. You need to have some level of intimacy, which requires intimacy, which requires not fighting, which requires good communication, which requires regulating your emotions, which requires all of these different things and expectations, regulating your expectations. And Irene came up with a sex calendar. Tell them about that.
So first of all, we had a discussion.
Yes.
This is how it started. Are we even conscious and realistic of our expectations of one another? So where did it come from? You started talking about your origin story and mine. So we could kind of come together to realize what was unrealistic and where our maybe root of our expectation came from an unhealthy place. So we first had that conversation. Are we even aware of our expectations? And then are they realistic? Obviously, you started to realize, oh my gosh, women for a week, at least for us, we're off for a week.
But get to the calendar.
Yeah. But the thing is, you got to
conscious, realistic, spoken. Yes.
So then we went to a calendar and I started tracking it. And by tracking it, you got to see when I was unavailable. Mm-hmm. And then you got to see how many times each week. And it's almost like it settled this fight that you had that maybe your needs weren't getting met.
Yeah.
You started to relax into, Irene has made it a priority.
You have made it a priority.
And I'm not like imagining or making up a script that wasn't true about her.
And now we just fight about, did that count?
Oh, you are so
Did that count? That was a quickie. The quickie don't count, right?
Count.
The quickie don't count. The quickie don't count.
Is that
it counts. No, it's not.
Okay.
Maybe it should be a song.
Oh, Jimmy.
Maybe I should be an artist.
No, I don't think that. You can sing though.
Huh? No. Okay.
Yes, you can sing.
So what we talked about is this calendar. And this calendar, honestly, it took a dynamic of fighting out of our marriage, of unrealistic, conscious or not conscious, spoken or not spoken expectations.
And then we agreed upon it. What our number was going to look like.
Yes. And every couple needs to have this exercise because everyone wants to know, what's your number? No, what's your expectations? Is it from a healthy place or an unhealthy place? Is it from a distorted place or a place of destiny? And these are the questions that you have to ask your spouse. And we are so excited about some upcoming episodes because, why? We are going to do this live with some of our friends and put them on the spot and make them super uncomfortable.
Yes.
And it's going to be great. Listen, I want you to dive into the show notes. I want you to get on xomarriage.com. I want you to sign up for Mastering Marriage. I want you to subscribe to the Naked Marriage podcast. And I believe we're going to journey together to find out how we can regulate our expectations. 2 equals 1. Equally crazy?
Equally committed.
Let's go. Next time on the 2 equals 1 Marriage Podcast.
There's no perfect marriage. There's no marriage that doesn't have conflict or fights or arguments or disagreements. So let's check in and figure out how to do this and do it well. So our disagreements don't divide us, but kind of bring us together.
Absolutely.
You know?
Your differences don't have to divide you. Your differences can complete you. They can bring you together to have a marriage made one. We want you to tune in to XO Marriage, everything XO Marriage. They can go to our website. Guess what? They can sign up for Mastering Marriage.
Yes.
Where they get 2 what?
2 coaching calls a month.
Wow.
An hour. You can sit down with your spouse and literally dive into just tools and get coached by Dave and Ashley Willis and Lynette and Sean Reed, and you and I do it as well. And we're all kinds of marriage educators who are going to help enhance your marriage and just the tools that we hear about when we're listening to a message. You know, at a conference, somebody speaks, we're listening to a podcast, but to actually get live on a Zoom and practice and hear just it broken down into smaller incremental pieces that we can digest.
You can go to www.xomarriage.com to sign up